Hello, and welcome to the Accountability Coach podcast, where we discuss proven business success principles related to helping you make more money, work less, so you can enjoy even better work-life balance. This is Bachrach. Today, we're honored to have two very special guests that I think you will find extremely interesting and of value to you on your goal achievement journey. Jeff Downs has had numerous years of executive leadership experience and also has consulted with numerous executive teams to achieve consistent, sustained, transformational results. As a successful entrepreneur and corporate leader, Jeff has worked as a Franklin Covey business results practice leader with Cisco, Boston Scientific, Comcast, Staples, Siemens, and of course, many more. Jeff and Jami have been married for 29 years and have 7 children between the ages of 9 and 25. And yes, I said 7. Jami is the mother, leader, teacher, and a passionate volunteer. As the mother of 7 children, she is an expert in logistics, negotiation, diplomacy, and project management, as you would imagine. Jeff and Jami are co-authors of the book, Streaking, the simple practice of conscious, consistent actions that create life-changing results, which was published on September 22nd, 2020. Streaking is a goal-setting practice created by Jeff and Jami, which allows us to transform our best intentions into new, consistent habits to help us meet our goals. Well, welcome, Jeff and Jami. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. It's so good to be here with you. We're excited to be on with you and talking with your listeners.
We are very excited. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm curious. How did you come up with the concept and the name for your book, Streaking?
All right, I'll take that one. Streaking came because I ran across an article. We are runners, and at the time, I was trying to find a way to be consistent in my running without having to sign up for a race. I wanted to, having 7 children and the age span that I have, I recognized that I needed to stay healthy and that I needed to have something in my life that kept me being healthy for a prolonged period of time. And running was kind of what I had chosen. However, I didn't really always have the time to train for a half marathon or a marathon or these different things. So I was looking for something to help me be more consistent in my running. And I ran across an article about a couple that had done streak running. And they were members of the Streak Runners Association, and they had been running together at least 1 mile every day for 15 years. And when I read that article, I thought, wow, this is really great. Maybe this would help me switch my emphasis a little bit from how far I'm going or how fast I'm going to simply how long can I keep running? Can I just run consistently every day? So that's where the name Streaking came from.
And streaking, as you know, at least I remember it when I was younger, and I'm probably dating myself a little bit here, was thinking about streakers. They were naked people running, right?
Yes.
So this
and
is
we
not
debated.
About that, just to be clear.
This is not about it. And I am truly on a personal mission to redefine that. It is my goal in life to redefine streaking from running naked across the college field to creating conscious, consistent actions in your life that help you to become who you want to be.
And we debated that for quite some time as far as what we should title this book, because the productivity and what we get from streaking and the consistency that comes from streaking is so significant that we were like, we don't want people to dismiss it right away because it has a connotation about, people running naked across a field. And in every approach that we tried to take, streaking, it kept coming back to streaking because what we studied were winning streaks. We researched how teams and individuals consistently won all the time. And what we then happened on after Jami really got into this idea of streak running, which means running at least 1 mile daily, what happened then is we found that there was many more areas of life that we could apply the streak or streaking concept. And so we started to research it and found that masters of any profession, people who are really good at what they do, actually employ consistency in a very processed way. And we found that they do 3 things in a very consistent way that we call streaking. They follow 3 laws, which are: 1, you make the activity on which you want to be absolutely consistent on laughably simple. 2, you make a record that you did that thing. And 3, you create a community around it. And those became the laws of streaking, laws number 1, 2, and 3. 2, and this is something really significant, Anne, and it's to become who you want to be. It's part of the process of becoming who you want to be. You've got a goal that you want to achieve. Well, guess what? You set streaks in order to become that person.
I love it. And well, belief is one of my number one favorite words, but I always talk about being consistent. So doing things consistently will get you to your goals. That's why I think this is so interesting and of value to people. So give me another example of perhaps how it's helped you all and others actually achieve goals.
I love that question. So when we started this journey, so I mentioned that I found the Streak Runners Association. Well, when I researched what you had to do to be a part of the Streak Runners Association, you needed to run at least a mile every day without missing a day. That was a little overwhelming to me personally. I thought I don't want to commit to that level. And so I started for myself. I looked at myself and thought, I've been running for a while. What can I do that I know I could maintain? That if my focus was to be consistent, to create this chain, so to speak, of running consistency, what could I actually do? And I thought I can run a mile or walk 6 days a week. So I gave myself a day off and I changed it from run a mile to walk a mile. And that ended up being a key component of us discovering the law of streaking, keep it laughably simple. Because what we realized is that when you're focusing on consistency, when you're truly looking at it saying, I want to be consistent in this thing, we needed to recognize that there were some days that were going to be challenging. And so in order to be consistent, I needed to make it laughably simple. So whenever we talk about setting your first streak, we say, write it in the words of, I'm going to do at least this much, knowing that you can always do more. But in order to maintain this streak of consistency, if you just do at least this much, you keep that streak alive. And so that was kind of the first thing that started with this. As we went along this journey, we also recognized that we needed a purpose behind what we were doing. And that's where Jeff had alluded to the B statement. As we got going and kind of recognized some of these different laws, the 3 laws, we realized that none of it mattered if we didn't have a thread of purpose behind it. You talk about belief, where in my mind, what you're saying is I have a thread of purpose behind everything I do. This is what I believe. And that belief system is the thread that goes through everything that I'm doing in life. That's what our B statement is that you look at yourself and say, who do I want to be? What is it? What is the kind of person that I want to be? What am I trying to accomplish here? And when you do that, you sit down and you think, well, I want to be this kind of person. Once you've understood who you want to be, you start to do the things that that kind of person does. And that's what dictates what your streaks are.
So one of the things that I wanted to be was a writer, teacher, and speaker. And I wanted to be one that was engaging, enthusiastic, entertaining, and energizing, also thought-provoking and persuasive. So I wanted to be that type of a person. And of all the things that I had tried to do, set goals, try to develop good habits and so forth, where they would work a little bit for me, and I look at those as different tools in the tool belt of who I want to be. One of the things that happened when Jami and I started to streak run is I recognized that I can apply this elsewhere in the sense that I want to be a writer. And so what do I need to do to become a writer? And what I had tried previous to this was maybe try and write a page per day, or set a goal to write a book by a certain time, or, establish the habit of just having the pencil and paper out or the keyboard at a certain area in order for me to type. And I recognized that none of those things, well, not only did I recognize I wasn't accomplishing anything by setting any of those things. And so what I decided to do is apply these laws of streaking and see if I could set a streak, so that instead of trying to accomplish something, I looked at it and thought, I want to be something. And what do I need to do? Well, I need to write every day. And then I thought to myself, well, what's the simplest thing that I could make a streak around? And I thought, well, write at least 1 sentence daily. And then I started to keep a record of whether or not I wrote at least that one sentence daily. And I would, Jami and I formed this community with one another where she would know, and she would ask me, not a way that was
like checking up on you,
checking
but
up on me,
more,
but in a way that was really curious. Was I
right.
keeping the streak alive? Well, and that streak right there, write at least one sentence daily, is now 1,385 days old. And I have been able to successfully write articles, letters. I've been able to write, and the streaking book that we talk about is a result of that as well, of Jami and I writing that together. She also has a streak of writing one sentence at least daily. But that whole thing came about because we changed our focus and our paradigm from achieving something to what am I inputting every single day and keeping track of to make it happen. And that whole thing of one sentence daily, the reason why we say it's laughable is because you start to think about it and you say, does that really make a difference? And the answer is no, it doesn't make a difference if done inconsistently. But done consistently, and I'll tell you, it carves canyons and it does massive things for not only what you're trying to achieve, but also for who you're trying to become and your own self-credibility and confidence.
That's amazing. And yeah, who you want to be, I look at it as, your purpose really helps drive you.
Right.
So if you don't have a clear purpose, which most people do, they just maybe haven't pulled it out of themselves like you're talking about and really defined it clearly.
Right.
Therefore, then the steps that you take to ultimately fulfill what's important to you or achieve your purpose, then that helps you. It's kind of what I'm hearing you say as well.
Right. And I think the thing that I've loved, there's been so many benefits for me personally streaking, but as I think about it, it's that once I decided who I wanted to be, streaking gave me a place to start to do. Like I could actualize, I can actionize. Is that a word? Actionize?
Actualize.
I could actualize. I could add action to the things that I wanted to be. So it gave me this place that I thought, okay, if I want to be, and it's been great to look at it and think it's been with business things, but it's also been with characteristics that I want in my life. We talked about, so I'm going to define this just really quick. We spent a lot of time talking about goals, habits, and routines and what a streak was. A lot of times when we would start doing this, people would say, oh, a streak is just a great way to start to develop good habits. And that kind of rubbed us the wrong way, and we couldn't figure out why. We couldn't figure out why it bothered us that people would say, oh, streaking is just a great way to have good habits. And what we came up with is that when you look at habits in the dictionary, it has two definitions. The one definition is something that you do automatically without thinking about it. And the second definition is something that you do repeatedly. And it's interesting, all the books that I've read on habits, everyone starts off with this agreement that a habit is something that you do automatically without thinking about it. But then we also transition to this place where, well, a habit is something that you just do often. And so what my frustration was is I thought, okay, if I do something often, will it become automatic? And what I had learned for myself, my own personal thing, is there are some things that I could do repeatedly, but were never going to be automatic. They may become easier for me to do, but if I stopped consciously choosing to do them, I would stop doing them. And so that's where it kind of reached this point where I'm like, okay, so then how do I do these things consciously that I know I want to do, that I know repetition and consistency are going to make what the changes that I need to have happen in my life? How do I get myself to have that repetition and that consistency? And that's where we decided that streaking is its own thing. A streak is kind of this place between a habit and a goal. And so you've got these habits that you want to have in your life, and some of them are things that are going to be automatic, like sometimes you're driving someplace and you just go left because you always go left, but you needed to go right. Or how we tie our shoe. We don't think about how we tie our shoe very often.
In the morning.
How we get dressed in the morning. We don't think about those things, and those things are important. And then these things that I set up routines so that I can have these repeated motions and experiences in my life, but recognizing that some of these really good things that I wanted in my life were never going to be automatic. And once I realized that, I kind of thought, okay, I'm okay with that. And streaks became a way for me to be able to set streaks that I recorded and could see I'm consistently doing these things every day because I'm choosing to. And so that's where, so we spent a lot of time kind of recognizing that our tool belt has goals, habits, streaks, routines.
And I think that the difference and the reason why it's important to know the difference is because I was getting frustrated, and I see a lot of people who I work with get frustrated that things that they do repeatedly were not becoming automatic. And that's one of the things that happens is we start to think that because I'm doing this thing repeatedly, or I've done it for 100 days or 400 days or 600 days, that it should now be automatic, but I still have to focus on it. And what this did is relieve that burden. Okay, I just recognize that these things are not going to be automatic. They're going to be streaks that I consciously, consistently do. And the streak is the thing that I want to keep alive. And so now that starts to pull you along and help you move toward, again, who you want to be.
Wow, that's so insightful, is the way I look at it. So just to be clear, how is a streak different from a goal? So everybody understands this. And how do they complement one another?
Love it. A goal, so being clear, and in the work that I do with organizations, I work with them to set concrete goals. And what a goal is a start line, finish line, and deadline. So for example, if I want to accomplish a certain savings by a certain date. So let's say I want to save $1,000 and I want to do that in the next 3 months or 5 months or 6 months. So I'm at zero. I'm going to go to 1,000 in 6 months. That is a goal. I'm reaching for something. I'm striving to attain it. I'm striving to get there. Now, I employ a streak to become someone who is conscious of and consistent in financial responsibility. Now, the streak complements the goal because the streak may be, I'm going to save at least 10 cents daily. Now, that's laughably simple, but the amazing part about that is your mindset starts to shift and you say to yourself, I'm going to be a conscious saver. And so I'm going to save at least 10 cents daily. And maybe you transfer that into account. You mark off the 10 cents that you get every day. Now, the goal is to save, let's say $1,000 in 6 months. Those two, saving the 10 cents daily won't necessarily get you to your goal. However, what it does do, the goal and the streak working together, is the streak makes you conscious of what it is that you're consistently doing to reach the goal. And you know that the goal is out there. Now, here's the really absolutely fantastic, neat part about this. In 6 months, I now have that $1,000 that's in the bank that I wanted to save. Guess what? The next day, I still have the streak alive because I want to keep that alive for as long as possible. The streak does not end with the accomplishment or the failure of the goal. And so what we often say, and we work with individuals and organizations, is to say, you can succeed or fail at a goal, but you always fall back or stand on the success of your streaks. The consistency of the streak is what supports you when you miss a goal and also when you achieve a goal. We've talked to many people who have stretched for a big, huge goal and have accomplished it, and then not ever done anything afterward to that goal again. Whereas with the streak really does help you not only accomplish the goal, but also continue on the path to become who you want to be.
That totally makes sense. How many times have, I don't know, you've heard, I know I've heard a lot, man, I was doing X, Y, and Z and it really worked. Why did I stop doing that?
Yes, exactly.
So right on.
And the thing that we found is that most of the time you stop doing it because life gets crazy or all of these other things that you had to be doing that are important or urgent got in the way. And so that's where one of the things that I have really come to value that streaking has done for me is to recognize that a lot of the time I'm doing the simplest thing, so the laughably simple. But what happens is that laughably simple thing done consistently does a lot of things. It helps me to recognize that one, it's okay to do it simple today because I did it yesterday, I did it today, and I'm going to do it again tomorrow. So there's something inside of me that says I can be okay with doing it simple today because I'm being consistent. But then there's this other thing that happens, that as you do these little drops of water, so to speak, pretty soon that starts to build up. And sometimes I'll have experiences where, because I've been consistent, now all of a sudden something really big happens. For example, I'll give a quick example. I have a family, I wanted to learn more about my family history. And I'm adopted from half of my family. I have a biological father that I didn't know, and I didn't know much of that side of the family. And I just wanted to get interested in learning more about my family. But that seemed a daunting task to me. I didn't know where to start. And so I found a website and an app. I downloaded the app and I set a streak to just, honestly, my streak was to open the app daily.
It was a family history app.
It was a family history app. And I thought, I'm just going to open the app or do something related to my family history every day, something small. And I was doing this for several days, like 100, 110 days, and had reached a point. I was working on it this one Sunday, and I was looking for my grandfather's headstone, and I couldn't find it. And this was my grandparents on my biological father's side, who I had known as a child. But when my grandma died, I had lost track of them and had assumed that my grandfather had passed away. And so I was looking for his headstone so that I could have a date of when he was dead. And I couldn't find it, and I kept running into all these roadblocks. And finally, this one day, I was looking a little, I had done something, and the one day, and I went the next day, and I thought, oh, I'm going to look at these phone records or this other website. And I looked and found out, it suddenly occurred to me that I'm like, maybe I'm not finding a headstone because maybe he's alive. Is that possible? And I did the math, and he would have been 90 years old. And so I was able to go directed to a phone book that gave me, I was able to find his phone number and his address, and was able to actually.
You called him, didn't you?
I called him and got in touch with him, and he remembered me, 90 years old,
So
and
you
I hadn't
thought he
seen
was
him.
dead, and
I
now-
thought he was dead. He was 90 years old. I hadn't seen him in probably 25 years, but he remembered me. I look back and I'm like, that was an amazing personal experience for me, but it only happened because I had set a streak and had just kind of done all these little things building up to this, kind of putting pressure behind this dam. And then in this one day, all of these little things came together and opened up this opportunity that I would have never even known was there had I not been consistently doing these little things.
And the thing I love about that too is the next day you did something
The
else
next
with
day,
family
I
history.
still
It wasn't
did.
like that was the climax and I'm not going to do it again.
Right.
You kept right on
I
going
kept right on
because
going.
you wanted to be a person who knew and understood your family history.
Exactly.
Great. So give me some examples of what people would do to bridge the gap between where they are in business and where they imagine they ultimately want to be.
You bet. As I look at it, so as far as, and let's take this in a couple of different arenas. So first, individually, I want to be a person who is maybe advancing in my career and being and moving up and learning and leading at some particular point in time. So let's take that particular person. Go ahead.
Are you going to tell the story about the cards? You should tell the story about the development cards.
Okay, I'll tell the story about that.
Sorry.
So in my profession and professional career, one of the things that I've always done and have wanted to do is to really lead and teach in the thought leadership realm. And so as we've gone along, I've wanted to progress in that, but I wasn't making really any significant progress. I mean, I was good at what I do, but I wasn't making the significant progress consistently. And I went to a 2-day workshop on how to improve your communication skills in your profession, such that you can really start to move forward with what is it that the individual with whom you're speaking wants and needs, and not what your wants and needs are. So a little bit had to do with sales, but it mostly had to do with communication and communication principles. And in this 2-day course, as we went through this 2-day course, at the end of it, the master instructor, challenged each of us to practice these communication cards. They called them development communication cards. And he said, just practice them. And I'll tell you this, if you practice these daily, then you will not only master this communication, but you'll see it in your profession be able to help you move into different leadership and also greater roles. Well, when he said that, I was sitting in the workshop and I was thinking to myself, this sounds a lot like a streak. So we'd been streaking to this point in time for, I don't know, maybe 2.5, 3 years. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set a streak to review at least one development card daily. So these communication development cards, I started to review them daily. Now, and fast forward 1 year. And I want to point out, because you had mentioned the gap between who I am and who I want to be. What we have noticed is that streaking is the practical application of patience, because I had to be patiently involved in doing this. And there were times where, I'm 60, 100 days in, I'm like, are these making any difference at all, really? But I kept at it. I'm like, you know what? I believe it. I'm going to go forward with it. So I kept on reviewing these cards. About a year later, I was invited by the teacher of this class that I had taken a year previous to come in and do some consulting work for one of his clients. And what they wanted me to do was apply not only what I was expert in, which is I'm expert in really helping organizations to set goals, but also to apply what I'd learned in communication. And because I had been reviewing these cards to that point in time, not only was I able to help with this client, but we also formed a whole new content area that became a multi-million-dollar business that we were able to go forward with. And it all came from the simple, small streak of doing at least one development card daily. And so in professional life, if you want to advance, if you want to get better, if you want to move forward, then look for, first of all, who you want to be, and then set 1 or 2 or 3 streaks in order to become that person. Let me just share one more streak that's really helped with that. One of the things that our day and age, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, email is here to stay, and it's going to be a major communication tool for everyone. And it has become and will continue to be a major communication tool. One of the things that I recognized in my professional career is that I was fighting against email and made me non-responsive, and people would complain about that. Well, I wanted to be a responsive person. I felt that being a responsive person would open up doors and vistas that I otherwise couldn't get to. And so I was thinking to myself one day, as I got some pretty heavy feedback on not being responsive, is there a streak that I can set that shows that I'm responsive? And so what I decided to do was set a streak that I would have no more than 10 emails in my inbox at the end of every workday. Now, that may be a forced laughably simple, but it was something that I thought, you know what, I could do this. And so I started down that path, and it was amazing what happened. I started to make decisions a lot faster as far as what I needed to respond to and how I needed to respond to it. I started to reduce the number of frivolous emails that would come into my inboxes. I started to look at the ones that were significant, but I knew would need a little bit more time, and I would respond to them immediately and say, I need a little bit more time to respond to this. I will get back to you by Friday afternoon. All of a sudden, all these things came about, and what happened is the responsiveness of that gave me all kinds of opportunities that I never would have had otherwise. And so I started to move in my professional career in that way as well.
And I love that the streak was able to change the behavior, that the streak allowed you to be able to look at email differently and actually change the way that you dealt with email. I
became more productive, big time more productive.
Right.
And you talk a lot about that. And that's what I found. And so since that time, Jami and I have worked with and consulted others, and they have seen similar things. When they do the smallest, simplest thing consistently, it makes them more productive.
So what I'm hearing you say in essence is believe in what you're doing with your streak, and it will result in something. So it's consistent action that you believe in that's going to produce the results somehow.
That is exactly right. And I love the way you're couching that, because it's not always clear as to when Jami used the metaphor of the dam. To win the dam will break. The dam of success will break. It's not always clear to that, but if you trust in what it is that you're doing and recognize that the consistency will absolutely pay off, and know that I keep it laughably simple, I keep a record that I do it every day, and I create a community around it, it will deliver the results.
And that's where I think your purpose, or my word, belief, comes in,
Yes.
to help you do that, because you believe in it so strongly enough that, hey, I will get whatever the result is when I do the consistent action.
I was going to say just that, and you start to become the person that you believe that you want to be. It gives you the actions to become that person.
Yeah, that ties it all up for sure. So now you talked about, keeping track or keeping a record. How do you suggest people actually record whatever their activities are to be completed on a consistent basis?
One of the where we started with this, and the reason why keeping a record is so significant, first of all, it's a little bit counterintuitive because you're keeping a record on something that's so small. You're asking yourself, why do I need to record that I actually wrote a sentence today, or that I reviewed a development card? Why do I actually need to record that? And what we found is that the record is the lifeblood of the streak, and the record keeps the streak alive. I want to continue to do it. Now, the question was for us, okay, how do we keep record? So the first thing that we thought about were what we call streak sheets, which was basically just an Excel spreadsheet where we would list in column A all the different streaks that we wanted. Say we had 2 or 3 different streaks, just to bring it right down into contextual application. One streak, I want to write at least 1 sentence daily. I want to read at least a paragraph in a nonfiction book daily, and I want to review at least 1 development card daily. So I'd write those 3 things down, and then basically in the columns after, I just start marking X's as far as, did I do that today? Did I do that today? Keeping track of the laughably simple. And that was great. However, we recognized right away that that wasn't laughably simple for everyone to do. You could do it, and there are people that will continue to do that. Jami did a little bit differently as far as keeping the record.
I did, yeah. I started off with a calendar with my first few streaks, and then as I started to add more streaks to it, the calendar became a little bit more cumbersome. So I also did an Excel spreadsheet, but I wouldn't mark an X. I would just put the number of days I had done it, so that number would go up each day that I did it, so that I could see I've been doing this thing for 110 days in a row. That was important to me.
What we recognized is that it was a little bit cumbersome, and we really didn't have a way to keep a record of it. And it's amazing how you have intersections in your life with people that are going to provide something that maybe you didn't have. And we had an intersection in our life with an individual who we explained the streaking methodology to, who owned a development company. And he said, well, I can develop an app for that very simply. And so he took that on and he developed an app. It's called Streaking. And this streaking app gives you the ability to list who you want to be, and then create what we call a stack of streaks underneath who you want to be, and then just check off every single day. And it's actually a hexagon. You just touch the hexagon every single day. So now. And
it'll count up and show you how many days you've done it. It also gives you the ability to connect with other people who are using the app, so that you can create communities of people who are doing streaks similar to yours, or people who aren't. If you just want encouragement from other people, you can share your streaks with people, and they can send you high fives and say, good job.
It's really quite amazing, actually, that it's a very simple way now to keep track of how many days in a row I've done this particular thing to become who I want to be. And it all leads up to that, and supported by the community.
Well, for me personally, this has been extremely insightful and actually thought-provoking. Tell us, what's the best way for people to get either a copy of your book, or how would they get the app, or what do you suggest they do?
We are on Amazon. You can order the book on Amazon. You can order it from Barnes & Noble. You can order it from Indie Books. The app is amazing, and you can get the app from the Apple Store or from Google Play, and you can start streaking right away. We've limited it at first to only 3 streaks that you can start, because people want to be overambitious and will try to restructure their entire life at once. And we really wanted it to just help it to be patient, to start with 3 things and give it 100 days of keeping that streak alive so that you get used to that level of consistency and keeping it simple. So,
and if anyone in any search engine at all types in Streaking Mastery brings up all the information that we have, and our website is streakingmastery.com. So just as we come to a close here, I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you do and the work that you've done for such a long time. It's significant in our life and significant in so many people's lives. So I just want to say thank you to you for encouraging, not only us, but also others to find what they need to do to be even more productive, work-life balance, and to achieve who they ultimately want to be.
And I want to echo the same thing. Thank you for taking the time. We learn from each other, and I love being able to listen and learn from you and the people you have on and the experiences that people have had as we all work to become who we want to be and to learn to actualize these things that we believe in.
And I actually love the fact that you have people have a limit to what they can do, because so many times when I'm working with my clients, it's like, hey, I want to exercise more. So I want to exercise 6 days a week. And I said, well, how much are you doing now? Well, maybe,
Right.
once a month. And
Yes.
it's like, okay, so let's pare that down, because you're setting yourself up for failure because you're not going to be able to consistently do something you haven't even done before at all.
Exactly.
So
Right.
I love the fact that it limits people to get in the habit of really being consistent and then building up to what you ultimately want to do or who you ultimately want to be based on whatever you decide you want to streak about.
It's uncanny how we've found that the number one law, keep it laughably simple, is the hardest law to keep. Like, it is extremely difficult to keep it simple. You want to make
because
it,
you're creative, ambitious, talented people, and you want big, bold, and beautiful. And honestly, that's what gets that's what gets the press.
Yes.
That gets the reward. It's the, wow, look at how amazing that is. When in actuality, it's the rungs of the ladder that were significant in being able to climb the mountain. It wasn't necessarily, that I got to the top. It was the 12 inches at a time that I was climbing that ladder.
Yep. Consistency is that long game.
And that helps you then turn so much more about what you're doing in life into something that can probably be more consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is so true. As you look at, one of the things I love about the whole idea of consistency, and it sometimes people can look at it and say consistency almost lacks creativity, when in actuality, I've found that consistency creates creativity and gives you the necessary structure to be able to be innovative, to be creative, to find different ways to do things. It's because it removes a variable. I do a little bit of work with continuous improvement, and you start to look at Lean Six Sigma and some of those areas. And Six Sigma was invented to remove variability. And when you remove variability, what that does is give you the opportunity to see what's working and then what can be improved. But if you have a whole bunch of variable problems, it's very difficult to solve any one of those problems. I got to be consistent in the area. And so as you look at your own life, once I start to get consistent in areas, now I can start to be creative and start to add things that are really going to help me achieve and accomplish who I want to be.
That's why I love the analogy that we call the streaking is the floor that you stand on. It's the basic foundation. One of your podcasts I listened to earlier, and I think you've said it a lot of times too, is this idea that successful people have learned to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I have thought about that so much because I like being comfortable. And I thought, how do you get to a place where you can be comfortable being uncomfortable?
You actually set a streak around this.
I did. I set a streak around this. It's not very old because I've just been, but I recognized that I needed to be more comfortable accepting feedback. Not even accepting it, I guess I should say, but seeking it out, that I needed to be able to seek out that feedback. And so I set a streak to seek out feedback at least once a week, to teach myself how to be a little bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that's what I love about these foundations of streak, this idea of the floor, is that it gives you this place to start where there's these ideas where you're like, I know that successful people have learned to do this, but how can I get to that place?
How old is your streak of accepting or receiving feedback?
That one is,
Because this one, Anne, to me was just absolutely phenomenal as I thought about it as a leader, as an individual. I mean, not all of us. And by the way, feedback on either side. Sometimes we don't accept positive feedback either. We
yes.
don't, feedback sometimes referred to as negative, but negative or positive, accept or seek out feedback is going to be significant. So how old was that?
This one's 17 weeks.
And how do you feel like has it changed you already?
It has, because, well, just exactly what you said. There was a point where I was looking at feedback as just negative. And we had a discussion that you're like, you could learn to accept positive feedback as well. So that I added that to my belief, is that I'm like, okay, feedback can be positive or negative, and I can learn to seek out both feedbacks and part of the process too was recognizing that that feedback itself is a gift, but that not all feedback is equal. And I wanted to learn how to kind of take apart the feedback and find out what was valuable in that feedback to me and what I needed to leave behind, and not recognize
Talk
that
about
wasn't
professional
important.
development. Wow, that's neat.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys landed on my expression about, successful people being comfortable with being uncomfortable all the time, because I keep,
Yep.
Telling my clients that all the time. And I just think it's a powerful concept. And I totally agree with you about feedback. And one thing I created for my clients is called the me file, because I think they discount too much the positive feedback.
Yep.
So they take all the negative in, and that makes them feel however it makes them feel. But I don't think they hear and really pay attention to the positive feedback. So I tell them to create a me file that basically are all the things that people have said about you, your team, whatever it is that's positive to you. And I just, even the other day, I was leaving my chiropractor's office, and the lady left, and she said to the doctor, the chiropractor, "I feel so much better." And she walked out, and I said, "Did you hear what she just said?" And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "She said she feels so much better. How does that make you feel?" And he didn't even really hear her, really.
Right.
Yes, that is so insightful.
And I just thought that was just so powerful, that I think we just don't take in all of that. And then when we might be having a down day, a bad day, or whatever kind of day, we need a little extra, then looking at this me file really helps you build your confidence and be more consistent doing the things that you need to do, because you realize people do say good things, and you just haven't discounted them going forward.
One of the things so as I hear you talk, and I love this, and I'm actually now considering potential streak, which is add at least one thing to my me file, either daily or weekly, that is either of a positive nature or of something that I've found that I've improved on. And that's the beauty of the whole streak, is I can start to now actualize that, because that piece of information that you've now given me, I absolutely love. And then I can either review or add to my me file weekly. And that type of streak starts to build up over time to pay compound emotional interest, so that in those moments where I'm not feeling the best, or I'm, down on my game or whatever, you know what? My streak today is to, I have a streak of reviewing my me file. I'm going to go back and review all the different positive and good things that have been happening and the things where I've been learning. And that will then reinforce what it was that has happened, so I can continue to strive to be that person that's there. I love that whole concept of the me file. That is phenomenal.
I do too. I'm going to start a me file.
I think
for
you
reals.
should. Yeah.
I like that.
And the nice thing is the other aspect of the me file is, not only does it help you keep your confidence in your cup full and flowing over, but then you can share that with other people when they need it. So you have so much now, and your cup is so full, that you can now share some of yours with other people. But if it's not full, then you can't really share a lot.
Exactly.
One of the analogies we use in the book, and is we talk about a cup sitting on a table is full of water to the very brim. And that cup full of water to the very brim, if you want to, and let's say it's cloudy water, and you want to replace that cloudy water with clean, clear water. But the rules are you can't lift the cup from the table and you can't scoop anything out. How do you replace the cloudy water with clean, clear water? And the whole idea is you have to add good, clean water in there in order to displace the cloudy water. And that is what I hear and love that you're
Me
saying
too.
is the whole idea is all of our cups are full. They are full to the brim with the water that we have, all the inputs that we've had throughout all of our lives. And so now I need to consistently put in good, clean, clear water in order to displace the other things that have gotten in there that aren't so good. And that's what I love about the me file is I set a streak to add one thing to my me file either daily or weekly. And that's drop by drop, putting things into my cup that now are going to displace all of that cloudy water. And to your point, I can now share that with others as well because I can see
your cup
clearly
is clear.
now. Yeah, my
you
cup
can
is
see
clear
clearly.
and running over.
And I love that because I'm picturing like we all have these doubts, these either doubts of ourselves or doubts because people have said things and people are like, well, you need to get rid of those doubts. And I've often thought, well, how do you do that? I love a me file. If I'm adding drops to my me file, it's replacing those doubts with these other things that I'm choosing to put in, that I'm choosing to see, that I'm choosing to recognize. Again, helping me to become who I want to be. And you're right, to see the world more clearly and then be able to help other people be able to see the world more clearly through displacing some of this negative stuff that is of no value with the positive stuff that we need.
Well, I'm definitely going to check out the streaking app. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm on board, guys. So I'm totally in. I love it. And I certainly got a lot of value from reading your book. So hopefully others will also get the book in addition to getting the app. Any final words that you'd like to share?
Just a great big thank you. And thank you not only to you, but also to all those out there who are starting by listening to at least your podcast. You know, that's even a streak in and of itself. I'm going to listen to your podcast at least one time daily or one time weekly. It's just starting that small or that simple that starts you on the road to really who you want to be.
Yep. And same thing. I know right now we're approaching a new year and people start thinking about setting New Year's goals, but I love being able to look at a streak and thinking, I want to set it any time in the year. Whenever I reach a point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to take this on and to work at being consistent in this and being able to start something small right now, right today that I can keep being consistent in.
Well, you could even take a small step and listen to the Accountability Minute, which is daily.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
You know, and it's only basically a minute and a half, maybe a minute and a half. So it's something short people can do to get a positive thought, reinforcement of something or whatever it might be for that particular topic. So,
but that adds up so much. If they do that every minute, every day, it literally changes you from the inside out. It changes your mindset. It changes the way that you view the world. It changes the way you think about yourself. But it starts with just 1 minute a day.
Love it. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate both of you, Jeff and Jami, for your insight and your contribution to the world and to making a difference for people. So take care, stay healthy, and I'm downloading the streaking app right after we get done here.
All right.
We say keep streaking.
Well, my hope for our time together with Jeff and Jami is that you got value and an idea or two that will help you be even more successful, personally and professionally. Feel free to share my podcast with others, as they can be found on most podcast platforms and in most English-speaking countries. And of course, if you'd like to get a short daily fix from me, subscribe to the Accountability Minute, which can be found again on most podcast platforms and in most English-speaking countries. And always, always, always remember to aim for what you want each and every day. Until next time, make it a great day, today and every day. Thanks for listening.